All right, hello LinkedIn and YouTube. Doing a double live stream today with Pomerol Partners, who I'm going to bring in just a minute. We're going to talk about a Qlik Sense Writeback Extension today. And Fred and Scott, who are with Pomerol Partners, are going to get into all of that and show you some demos, and you can jump in with questions. But first, I'd like to know where everybody is tuning in from. And also let me know if you're working from home. My assumption is that probably everybody's working from home at this point, but just wanted to get a little pulse check. Okay, I see we've got about 30 people on now. Like I said, if you're joining in, just let me know where you're dialing in from, because it's always interesting to see. All right, I see Nasri says hello. Hello, Nasri. And also do share the LinkedIn live stream link with your network. This way we get a nice big group of people and we can have a fun discussion, because I think this is as close as we can get to interacting and networking at this point. All right, I see we got a bunch of people. We've got Thomas, hello. We got Kunal joining in. We got Rafael from Argentina, Stephen from India, Sari from Tunisia, Steve, that's actually my brother, he's here, working from home in New York. Yep. We've got Michael Mohani from Kansas City, someone from Algeria, Paris, India, basically all over the world. All right, great. All right, Nasri says yes, of course. All right, thank you guys for letting me know. Okay, without further ado, I'm going to bring in Fred Hefer. He's the CEO of Pomerol Partners, and I'm going to go ahead and let him into the stream. Hello, Fred. How are you doing?
Hey, how are you doing?
I am doing just fine. And where are you tuning in from?
I am dialing in from Kansas City, of all places. So yeah, it's very, very glad to be on the call today. And yeah, looking forward to telling you guys a bit more about who we are, what we do, and yeah, sharing the thoughts.
Awesome. All right. Well, before we get into that, why don't you tell people who is Fred? Talk a little bit about yourself.
All right. So Fred Hefer, guys, hello. I'm one of the original co-founders of Pomerol. I was born and educated in South Africa, and then I moved to the United Kingdom to pursue a career in investment banking. I started working at a bank called Deutsche Bank, and that's where we started the company from, Pomerol Partners. I am married, and I've got 2 sets of twin boys. So yeah, it's busy times at the moment, but all good, all good.
Yes, tell us about the kids. How old are they again?
The kids are turning 12 and 8 in July. So yeah, it's the 4 of them running around. They might make an appearance later in the broadcast. But yeah, the funny fact there is they actually share a birthday. So they were
no way. All 4 of them share a birthday?
Yeah. But it's awesome, right? Because you've got 4 kids, 1 birthday.
Oh my God.
Economies of scale, So yeah, it's just one big party and then it's done. So
how did you pull that off? Was any of this planned?
Yeah. No, wasn't planned. Yeah, definitely not.
Awesome. All right. Well, let's get into it. So how did Pomerol Partners get started, and what really does the company do?
So as I mentioned, I mean, we spun out of Deutsche Bank, but what that means was I used to be a finance manager at Deutsche Bank, and I was looking after 2 products. I was looking after short trading and equity flow swaps. And basically what that meant was, I mean, I was responsible for calculating the P&L on a daily basis, but I also needed to send management information back to my traders and my sales guys. Crunching that amount of trade volume was difficult enough, just calculating the bottom line, but getting any insights out of the information was really tough, because I had to pull it out of the trading system, put it into Access, run the queries, put it into Excel, run the pivots, sum ifs, and then getting into like pivot tables, and then I had to get it into PowerPoint. But what happened was, like, after all of that, I got the numbers done on Friday, pitched it to my traders, and they asked me questions, so I couldn't respond to them because I had to go back and rerun the numbers, and it was messy. But yeah, I ran across a analytics platform called Qlik, Qlik, and I started automating a lot of my reports. So over a course of 6 weeks, I taught myself how to do the basics, and I got the weekly reports out instead of on Fridays. I got them out on midday on Monday, and the rest of the week I could really just look at, why are we trading with these guys? Why are we pricing the securities we are? Should we be using this type of collateral? And that's where we got started. I wasn't the world's best developer, so I got a developer to help me with what we were doing. His name is Hamish Imri, and we went to the front office. We started working directly with the traders, and we saved the bank a lot of money in a very short space of time. And this was just after the financial services crisis, so there wasn't a lot of bonuses going around or promotions available. So listen, either get bitter about it or you do something. And we started the company, so that's how we started in 2013.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, that was a very high level introduction of how we came to doing or being Pomerol Partners.
Great. So that's, I guess you're at about 7 years at this point. Before I go to the next question for you, I do want to ask those who have tuned in, just let me know if you have heard of Qlik, if you use Qlik, if you use something other than Qlik for your data analysis. Just curious to get some ideas. And also do ask questions in the comments if you have questions for Fred. All right. So, Fred, what types of industries, regions, and clients do you typically work with?
So I mean, being a consultancy, a lot of times you're a function of your opportunities. But we started working within Tier 1 investment banking. So our first client in 2013 was Bank of America Merrill Lynch. And we focused those initial years was really much in the city of London, was big banks, RBS, Barclays. But my developer at Deutsche Bank, he came from an SAP ERP functional consulting background. So we started putting Qlik on top of SAP, and that got us into biopharmaceuticals, that got us into manufacturing. We got out of financial services through doing more of that type of work on ERP systems. But the common denominator there was always a very strong US client base. So even in our London days, we were doing a lot of business with US clients. So we made the call to jump across the pond in 2016. And basically, we set up shop in the Midwest, but we are doing work for lots of companies. So within financial services, manufacturing, biopharma, from the East Coast to the West Coast. We've got clients in Hawaii and Alaska, but it's really about being able to identify disparate sources of data, bringing it together, and helping them with their business processes. Funnily enough, we've got a presence in Southern Africa. We actually put this analytics system on top of a Safari booking system. So we've got a Safari analytics business in the southern and eastern parts of Africa, which is quite interesting. But again, it's data, bringing it to life and helping people make smarter decisions.
Yeah, that's interesting. And you mentioned that you started all this in Kansas City, right? Well, what's the story behind that?
Yeah, Kansas City. Yeah, I mean, we went to the British government when we were in London, and we said, listen, we know we have to go to the States. We don't know where to start. And they had a function called the Department of International Trade. And we were lucky in that when we went to them, they also had their delegates from the East Coast, the West Coast, and the Midwest there in London and Westminster. So we pitched who we are, what we did. We told them the story of Bank of America and this and this and this. And all of them said, well, you guys will do well wherever you go because, data is always going to be in demand and getting insights is going to be more particular. And we were like, well, thank you, but that doesn't really tell us where we should go. And then the guy from the Midwest, Tim Backer, he just, he spoke to us afterwards and he said, listen, the East Coast is an option. It is, it's similar to what you guys have done in London, but it's very competitive, so, it is an option. Look at the West Coast. The West Coast, there's not a lot of people doing specifically what you guys are doing in Qlik, but it's very expensive to get started. Look at the Midwest. Look at the, opportunities from Minnesota down to Texas. And we started looking at the GDP by state, and we were still not really convinced. And then he lined us up with the Economic Development Corporation of Kansas City. So this organization was that they travel the world and they try to get companies to invest in Kansas City. we took the meeting out of how should I say, being nice, because the only thing we knew of Kansas City was in the middle of the US, and it had tornadoes and Dorothy's and all of that.
Right,
but,
Dorothy, that's what comes to mind. Yeah.
We took the meeting out of courtesy, and then the lady started talking to us in our belly. She said, listen, Kansas City is one of the first Google Fiber cities. You've got companies like Black & Veatch, Garmin, Sprint, H&R Block situated in Kansas City. And we're like, hang on, those companies use SAP. They probably could use what we're doing. And there weren't a lot of Qlik partners in Kansas City, so we flew. I flew out, and I got more done in 1 week's worth of business development in Kansas City than I did at London at the time. And I said, we could go analyzing all of these states and not do anything. So we made a decision. So that's how we touched down in Kansas City. Fast forward a few years, we still have a presence here. Most of our guys are in Chicago now, and we've also got people in Denver. So we're serving the US from a very Midwestern point of view.
Awesome. All right, so we've got a couple of questions here. I'll start with Jennifer Cooper. Hi, Jennifer. She's asking, so Pomerol Partners has moved beyond just trade data and working with other companies and use cases. She'd love to hear more about the Safari use case. You could share.
Yeah, the Safari use case was very interesting because we, as part of looking at trade data, the extension there is ERP, financial information, and the Safari system itself was it's an ERP system and a booking system at once. So the people who have lodges, they use a system called Res Request. You've got booking agents who use the same system. And really what we wanted to understand was, who are the best booking agents? Where am I making the best margins? And where are my clients coming from? So by putting the analytics on top of the Res Request, we were able to help these lodges, pin down, the best agents, the best time to do promotions, the best margins. And it's a small but growing business because, it fits a very particular niche and being able to help small businesses make the right decision through the use of data.
Yeah, excellent. Actually, Jennifer had one more question. She said she's heard of Pomerol Partners, or I guess Qlik, and hasn't used it yet, but she may have missed this. But how is the data getting into Qlik for this use case? Is it an API or is it something else?
Yeah, Qlik can, one of the reasons we like Qlik is you can connect to virtually anything. So, from a consulting perspective, is you can go into an investment bank, you can go into a credit union, you can go into a Safari Lodge, and you can connect to anything. Qlik has got a very sophisticated ETL engine, so you do need to clean data, you do need to transform it, you do need to massage it. So from a consulting perspective, using Qlik, you've got one tool that you can use to connect it, transform it, and visualize it. So it makes our lives a bit easier in terms of just saying, hey, listen, let's use this one system. In terms of the Writeback extension, yes, there's definitely an interaction with APIs. Qlik itself can connect to various APIs natively to pull information, but I'll probably leave our other guest, Scott, to talk about APIs and the Writeback extension itself, but hopefully that answers Jennifer's immediate question.
Yep. Okay, another question from Alistair Moore from iData. So who do you think is ahead with enabling clients to monetize their data? Is it Oracle, SAP, Adobe, or another?
That's a difficult question. When you look at those software vendors, it may not always be the software vendors leading the charge. Typically what you'd find is it'd be bodies or instances who understand the business process, who understand what your clients are actually doing. So I'd almost say your business process consultants should be closer to saying, listen, this is currently the best tool to use for this type of problem, but it might be, that changes in a few years. But you have to understand the business before you can recommend the tool. So that would be my immediate answer to that question.
Yeah, I agree. And so Kelly, she doesn't have a question, but she just says she loves your business case for moving to the States and that the Midwest is a great location for tech startups and transformation. So thanks, Kelly, for the comment. You mentioned the Qlik Sense Writeback Extension, and I know we're going to get Scott Duthie to talk more about that. But can you give an overview of, how did you guys come up with this product? Where did you see the need for it, and what is it really?
Yeah, we again, it was one of those things that happened by chance. We were working with one of the US's biggest commercial banks, and I was working with their stakeholders in charge of their analytics program and their data monetization. And we were bouncing around a few ideas of, how can we help them? Is that through doing Qlik services? Is it doing through, some sort of advisory? And we basically came to the idea of doing a writeback. So I came across the use case, a few weeks before, and I threw it out to the stakeholder, and they said, "Listen, this sounds really interesting. Would you guys be interested in co-developing this with us?" And I'm like, "Yeah, that would be awesome." So we actually started co-developing this with this US commercial bank, and over a course of 2 years, we co-developed the product. It's been in use with them for over 18 months in production, and that's really helped us fine-tune and make sure the thing is ready for enterprise usage, and learning the very hard lessons of scalability in a very complex environment. So we fire tested this and we co-developed this with the product. So, and that's really where it got to last year. And at a point last year, in September, we had a decision, and we said, "Listen, we can build extensions for clients on an ad hoc basis, or we can take this one extension, which we think is really adds a lot of value. It makes business intelligence a lot more sticky. Let's put our chips behind this and take this to market." And that's really the efforts of last year. Bringing it to market, getting it in front of the right stakeholders. But it's been born out of demand. It's been co-developed and fire tested by one of our clients, and we're very, very proud to put our name behind it and start driving exposure to it.
Awesome. Yeah, it's always good to get it fire tested by a client for 18 months. So that means it's really working. That's great. Before we say goodbye to you temporarily and bring in Scott, just one last question. How did you guys come up with the name Pomerol Partners?
Pomerol Partners. So Pomerol is actually the name of a wine region in Bordeaux, and your Bordeaux red wines are very, very famous for being very good blends of certain varieties of grapes. So the reason we chose the name is if you look at business intelligence and data in isolation, i.e. one grape is okay, it's fine and it's good, but you really have to understand the business process and the commercial process of what challenge we're trying to solve. And we saw the combination there, saying, "Listen, we are good in data. We're good at understanding the business process, and blending those skills is something that make magic happen." And that's how we got to it. So we called the company Pomerol Partners. It's a bit more difficult explaining that context in Kansas City, but certainly in Europe, people know it very well. Yeah.
All right, awesome. Well, Fred, we're going to go ahead and bring Scott in, and I'll bring you in about 15-20 minutes so we can do a little conclusion. But thank you for your time. And if you guys who are tuning in have questions for Fred, keep asking them, because we're going to bring him back in 15 minutes. So I'll see you soon.
Speak soon.
And I'm going to bring in Scott.
Thank you.
Hello, Scott.
Okay. Hey, Kate. How you doing?
Thank you. Thank you for joining today. Do you want to get started and tell people a little bit about who you are and what you do with Pomerol Partners?
Yeah, sure thing. So I'm a principal consultant with Pomerol Partners. I first started with Pomerol back in our London days, working with Fred, probably almost 6 years ago now. So I worked with Pomerol in London for a few years, and then I was one of the first movers heading over to Kansas City 3 years ago to kick off some of our first projects there. So, and now I'm based in Denver. So Fred and I often have a battle about who has the best wicket, but I think I'm winning being in Colorado. I'm very biased to Colorado now.
Are you guys still allowed to come outside at this point, or no?
No, but people seem to be flouting the rules a little bit.
Yeah, I think, yeah, this
is actually, I think it's due to snow today. It looks like there's some weather rolling in, but yesterday was lovely and the park was packed with people. So that's a typical Denver day. Bit of snow, a bit of sun.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I think it's about to be like 50 or 55 degrees here in New York. So probably going to head out in a couple of hours and walk around a little bit. So
Yep.
I know Fred, touched on it a little bit about the Qlik Sense extension, writeback extension. But for those who've tuned in who have never heard back of a writeback, can you just give your version of that explanation?
Yeah, sure thing. So I guess the short explanation is that the writeback extension allows users of a BI platform and Qlik in this case to actually enter data back into their published applications. So generally business intelligence and BI tools are a sort of one-way street of data. It's generally a read-only experience for the consumer. And yeah, during our consulting projects, we just saw a lot of demand and a lot of use cases for consumers of dashboards and reports to be able to actually feed back into the system. So yeah, as Fred mentioned, it's been a pretty exciting journey co-developing with a bank, but we now have all sorts of different use cases, and it's our customers that are really bringing all these use cases to us that we have never thought of. So yeah, it's exciting times.
Yeah, I can actually absolutely see the need for it. So I spent about 5-6 years now working with various data visualization tools, and when you put them in front of a client, one of the first things they want to do is try to write back the data, or I've just seen several use cases personally, but I'd love to hear about some of your, I guess, more popular use cases for this feature.
Yeah, sure thing. So one of the first use cases we had, and this is the use case that we were sort of co-developing with a bank with, is they had a lot of predictive analytics and machine learning models, and they were using Qlik to actually visualize and assess the results of those models. But they were needing a way for the people assessing those models and the outcomes. They needed a way to actually capture commentary, to flag anomalies, flag exceptions, and actually feed back sort of qualitative analysis back into the platform, so that could be picked up and models could be retrained. So this might be flagging, a false positive or a true negative, or flagging something that an anomaly or an exception. So yeah, instead of doing this in an external tool and capturing this in Excel, for example, and feeding it back to the models, it just made more sense to actually do it in the same platform where the analysis of those models was happening. But since then, we've been doing a lot of actually one of the most common use cases we're seeing at the moment is a transaction matching use case. So a lot of very common in sort of back and middle office banking, but also very common in any accounts receivable department in any company, often needing to pair up things like pending credit card transactions, for example, with an accounts receivable balance. And it's very common that you're going to have two systems that have your receivables and have pending transactions, but you can't actually marry these up together because these systems don't talk to each other. So we're using the writeback extension to allow people to actually pair up receivables and incoming payments and sort of match these off, and essentially bringing an operational process into Qlik. If Qlik's just being used as a read-only platform, you could see these two items that should be matched, but you then have to jump to another tool to actually join them together. So yeah, it's just about trying to bring some of these day-to-day business processes into your analytics platform.
Right. Thank you for that. And we have a question from Alice there. He's asking, how do you address data quality concerns with writeback, right? Because I guess in some people's minds, you think you're going to write back into the underlying data source and you can make mistakes. And how do you address those concerns?
Yeah, that's a really good thing to be thinking about. It's almost very similar to having a user inputting data into your CRM system, for example. So if they're inputting information into Salesforce, they have the ability to make an error. They could spell something wrong. They could enter text instead of numbers in a field and make errors. And we have to be thinking about the same things with the writeback. So the first way we try and deal with that is when users are actually entering data into their app or into their form, we can use certain data types, numeric, text, alphanumeric, to force the user into a certain data format. And then if we can't catch something there, so maybe someone has sort of fat fingered a number and entered 50 million instead of 5,000. When we pull that data back into our Qlik applications, we can use business rules to identify anomalies. So, what is this transaction? Does it fall outside of the 20-day moving average? We can create business rules to try and identify anomalies so that data doesn't make it through to our reports. And that's something we often do for customers, even with SAP and Salesforce data, is when we load data over to the BI platform from the ERP or CRM system, we'll often have business rules that try and find bad data before it hits the reports.
Oh, okay, so, yeah, that's smart. And the business rules, are these like scripts that are written with the Writeback extension, or is this something that you build into Qlik? How does that work?
So we can build this just in the Qlik script. So Qlik has a pretty powerful ETL engine, and we have a full script editor there. So we can write any business rules that you'd like to test certain data points. But there are other really great tools out there that are custom built for this. And one that comes to mind is actually NodeGraph. I don't know if you've heard of that.
I've heard of NodeGraph, yeah.
But they work very closely with Qlik, and they actually have custom modules for for testing data before it hits your apps and reports. So that's I guess the kind of professional bells and whistles way of dealing with data testing. But it can also be done just in your script in Qlik when you load your data through.
All right. Question from Jennifer. So she said, this is starting to sound really interesting. So if I use SSIS normally for ETL, are you saying I could use this Writeback extension and Qlik to get data into Qlik and then export results to my SQL server? I could repeat that.
That was a handful. So what you're actually using the Writeback extension for is to just say you're loading some information, and it might be a sales opportunity against a customer. And you've got a customer, you've got a sales opportunity, and you might want to use the Writeback extension to capture some other information, like we might be running a promotion that starts next week, and we don't have anywhere in Salesforce to capture any information around that promotion because it's a short-term thing. So we could use the Writeback extension to capture some information. The sales rep could enter, is this customer interested in participating in the promotion? Which products would they be interested in? How what demand do they think they'd see? What days would they participate? We can catch all these different data points using the Writeback extension. So you can almost think of it as a way of capturing, additional information that's additional to what you're already capturing in your ERP or CRM system. I think with a lot of the sort of Writeback solutions that people have been creating, a lot of them have been very budgeting and forecast, finance focused. We've tried to keep our version a bit more open and flexible. So, we have some customers using it for budgeting and forecasting, sales reps entering budgets, doing scenario modeling on different budgets and forecasts. But we've also, we've got a very wide range of quite light use cases where people are actually just entering, commentary beside a customer or a transaction, things like that.
Right. Okay, couple more comments. So Manan says he's checked. Oh, he saw my post yesterday about Pomerol Partners, and he thinks it looks like a powerful tool. Where can people go to learn more about the Qlik Sense Writeback Extension if they have more questions?
Yeah, sure thing. So we have a sort of knowledge base website that we've set up, which is writeback.pomerolpartners.com. And in there, you will find things like common use cases. So we've got a range of different case studies and some short videos that step through those different use cases. There's also information in there around, installation instructions. And this is a pretty new site for us. We're building this out with resources. So in time, it'll end up being a resource hub with things like downloads, template resources, almost anything people need to sort of get up and running and get their use case working.
Right. And speaking of getting up and running, how long does something like this typically take to set up? Let's say if I already have a Qlik Sense license and I've have Qlik Sense applications that are already published and I'd like to add this extension.
So there's almost two parts to be thinking of. The first part is we need to get the extension installed in your Qlik Sense environment. So we help our customers with that. We generally jump on a WebEx and someone from our team will walk through the installation process. And we like to sort of spend the time to actually help people through that process. One, so that they actually have an understanding of what's going on, and two, just in case we encounter any hurdles. During that install process, what we need the Qlik Sense server to be able to communicate with wherever we're writing our data to. And there needs to be some two-way communication. And so that can often, for every environment, that can be a little bit different. So we'll always help people through making sure, does the service account have access to this database to read and to write data? But it normally takes about an hour to get it installed in Qlik, get the Node app on the Qlik server running, and get that interaction with the database working. And then we have a lot of different bundles of template applications. And so depending on the use case or industry, we'll get one of these template apps up and running and sort of use that as a bit of a guide for the environment.
Awesome. And I know we discussed that you're going to do a demo. So are you good to start sharing your screen?
Yeah, absolutely.
Right. Let's do that. And if people have questions for Scott, and we're going to bring Fred in after you do your on-screen demos, so we can address more questions.
Yeah, sure thing.
All right.
So what I'll do is I'll just show a quick demo of the transaction matching use case that I mentioned earlier. So the sort of bones to this is that companies often have accounts receivable, invoices that are due, and then often have payments that are pending in their system, and often can't match these together. So what we're doing in Qlik here is we're bringing all of our pending payments and accounts receivable together, and we're using a bit of a fuzzy matching process in the Qlik script to actually try and match the transactions. And what we're doing here is, if I just highlight this one here, number 136, we're actually using Qlik to try and match these based on the amount and based on the transaction date. Now, what we can see is we've got a pending payment for $1,048, and we've actually got this accounts receivable balance for $1,048. Now, if we're happy that these two are actually a match, we can pop open our writeback extension. Now we can see that this matching ID has been auto-generated, and we can hit save. And so what's happening here is that matching ID is being pushed back to our SQL database. It's storing that ID beside these two transaction lines. We get a little confirmation message to say, yep, this has been stored back to our database fine. It's been loaded back into our app. And now we can see that for these transactions, they're matched. We can see they were matched by me. We've got a timestamp there. So, we've got this sort of full audit history. So we can see who did the matching, when it happened, and what occurred. and then we can clear our filter here, and we can move on to the next transaction. So what we're doing here is, we're taking a process that used to be done either in Excel, or for a couple of our customers that actually built a custom sort of web form or web app for doing this process. So it's a lot easier for them to manage in Qlik just using a plug and play extension. So does that transaction matching sort of use case, do you see how that one works, Kate?
Yeah, absolutely. I think this is a great use case, and we actually have a question while you were showing this. Varun, a software engineer from JP Morgan, is asking if this is ready for corporate use and how nicely can it integrate into corporate environments.
Yeah, absolutely. It's ready for corporate use. So as Fred mentioned earlier in the session, we co-developed the extension with a leading investment bank in the US, which it taught us a lot around how to scale this up to a large number of concurrent users, and also how to integrate with their security. So we're actually, in loading our data here and writing to a database, we're touching a lot of different systems in their environment. So that was a really good trial by fire. But yeah, we've taken our learnings from that and built those learnings into the product. So the product's very robust. It can handle a lot of concurrent users. We have a queuing mechanism built in so that when we have lots of different users all trying to edit at the same time, they don't conflict. They end up in a nice queue of having those edits committed. And yeah, we're currently rolling this out in quite a lot in financing, quite a lot of sort of supply chain logistics type of scenarios. Yeah, we're seeing use cases across the board.
Yeah, you answered my question. I was going to ask what happens when there's a conflict. So they get sent to some sort of queue where somebody has to make a decision?
Yeah, so it's automated. It's happening in the background. So, if two users are trying to edit something at the same time, one of those users will essentially whoever gets there first, or if they get there at the same time, one will be queued behind the other so that their edits are not lost. And each time those edits are committed, as we were sort of just showing with this example, there's a timestamp. We have a record of who made the edits, when they made them, what edits they made. And what this means is that for some use cases, we really need to be able to visualize the whole audit history. So you might have a negotiation process or an approval workflow that you're using the extension for, and we can actually visualize this whole process.
Awesome. Satya Brata is asking, is it possible to directly connect SAS data set with this? Yeah, so
Qlik can essentially connect to any data source. I know Qlik likes to pride itself, and that's almost its sort of mission statement, is that they can connect and load data from anywhere.
Yeah.
So it's actually Qlik and Qlik's powerful range of connectors that are connecting to your SAS data source. It's not actually our writeback product itself. You can think of our writeback as just sitting as a little add-on to the Qlik environment.
An extension, a writeback extension.
Yep.
Okay. Jennifer says that she can see a lot of need for this in the auto finance space. Internally, they track dealers based on name, ID, but when they try to get their party data, there are issues with matching. So another use case, auto finance.
And this, I've shown you this transaction matching use case, which is a bit, it's a bit financy. Another use case that's really similar is what people are often trying to do with their BI tools is bring information together from different systems. And often that information doesn't perfectly talk to each other. That's the reality of business systems, especially businesses that have grown by acquisition and might have different CRM or ERP systems. The power of using a BI tool, or one of the most obvious powers of the BI tool, is always connecting your customer and opportunity information from your CRM side to your ERP system and your transactional side. So what we're doing in this example here is we're using another sort of fuzzy matching process in Qlik to try and link these customers from our CRM system to these customers from SAP. So if I just filter down to one of these customers, for example, we can see here. So we've got this customer here called Browns Drive, and just the way the name is written and the account ID is actually different in our two systems. Mm-hmm. So we sort of, we might take the customer name and remove the special characters and the spaces and make it uppercase and do everything we can to standardize it and try and see if we can create a fuzzy match. But we still need someone to actually go in and say, yep, I agree, these two are a match. And they can actually, confirm that these are a match and hit save. And this will be committed to our database. And now our reporting for this customer, we can join their transactional data and their CRM data and, that helps drive our reporting.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you might have just answered Jennifer's question. She said you've mentioned CRM a couple of times, and as a Salesforce admin and marketing analyst, she's wondering if it could be used to attribute sales activity to opportunities.
Yep. So that was actually exactly where this use case came about. Is we were helping a customer analyze their opportunity pipeline from their CRM system, but we might have an opportunity that was closed won in the CRM system, and sales reps were needing to be compensated for closing those opportunities. But we didn't actually have a validation process to see, well, did we ever actually invoice anything against this customer? Maybe the opportunity got signed off, but then something happened and we never actually did the work. So we were using this to help connect our customers from CRM to our customers from our transaction system and sort of close the loop effectively and say, hey, yeah, this opportunity, yep, it was won and closed, and I can see that we've actually billed X amount of that opportunity value over this time period, So yeah, that's a really common use case. Just touching on the whole CRM type of topic, we've also done, and this has been very, very relevant lately, with everything that's happening at the moment. A lot of companies have seen their sales forecasts effectively become worthless in the last few weeks just because of the huge disruption.
Why? What happened in the last few weeks? Am I missing something?
Well, if you're actually isolating and following the rules, maybe you've been in your bubble and you haven't heard. But but what we're trying to do is we're trying to help companies take all of their opportunity pipeline from their CRM system and give them an easy way to do some modeling to work out, well, if these opportunities all have their close date pushed out by a few months, what does this do to our revenue forecast? Or maybe if these opportunities all get downgraded, they're no longer worth $200,000. It's only an $80,000 opportunity because we're scaling back the budget. How does this affect our revenue forecast? So yeah, just as an example of that, we've loaded all of our opportunities here from Salesforce. I can select a few of these opportunities that we want to focus on. So we can see, I've got, where are we? 671K of weighted revenue aligned with these opportunities. But I might want to model, what does this look like if we actually, reduce some of the numbers associated with these opportunities? So maybe the labor revenue is going to decrease for this opportunity, and maybe, this opportunity gets cut in half, and maybe the probability for a couple of these opportunities has actually decreased, and maybe the stage is being pushed back from planning to new or something like that. So we can do a bit of scenario modeling. We can hit save. We're going to capture these records and store them, and then bring them back to Qlik for analysis. So we can see
That's fast.
Yeah, we can see now what the impact of that is overall. So, modeling some changes on these opportunities, our weighted revenue dropped from, what was it, 670 or something, down to 341K. And, out at a high level, for a particular region, for example, I can go and see, well, what was the impact of these potential changes on our sales forecast? So we're not writing this information back into your CRM system directly. We're really just trying to create an easy way to do some quick scenario modeling off on the side. And we've got a client that's actually doing a lot of this for Salesforce data at the moment, and they'll be sitting in a meeting room with sales managers modeling this on the fly as a group as they go. Like, let's look at these opportunities. What's happening? What is this close date realistic? So yeah, this is one of the use cases that I get excited about because it's real, it works. I'm seeing it really help people at the moment. Yeah,
absolutely. Jennifer just said that's huge, and being able to tie back sales visits calls to win deals is crucial for ROI. Definitely a couple more comments saying that this looks like a very, very interesting use case. I think at this point I will bring are you done with the screen share demo, Scott? Are we going to bring Fred?
Yeah, absolutely. You need to take me out of this, because otherwise I'll end up talking about it all day.
All right, so I'm going to bring Fred. There you are. Let's just make you all bigger. Okay, no, I think this is better. All right, so we are all here now to take a couple more questions. I know we're probably at around 45 minutes at this point, but you guys have a webinar coming up at the end of April at some point, right? What's the exact date?
Correct. It's on the 30th of April. So yeah, we'll send this out as part of the follow-up. Scott will be running through a few more use cases in detail and just showing the practical benefits. I mean, it's one thing to talk about stuff in theory. It's another to actually show what we are doing and how we're helping our clients, make better decisions with the help of this extension.
Yeah, absolutely. And we did have a couple more questions if you guys still have time.
Yeah.
All right, Alistair has asked, have other banks adopted Pomerol and this, writeback extension, and how do you approach them? How have they benefited?
So we've seen a lot of uptake with credit unions in the US. It's based off a lot of that transaction matching that Scott took through earlier, because essentially what we're doing there is we're automating manual reconciliation. So normally what would have happened is, they would either be a bespoke system or somebody would be crunching this in Excel. So by showing off the capabilities of how you can do this in a BI tool, we think is a game changer. But there's also other use cases. If you think about P&L controlling, and being able to post adjustments and get trading books into order, there's a lot of potential. But more specifically to Alistair's comment is, we've only brought this to market late last year. So we need to get the focus right in terms of how we will be supporting which client bases. That's probably the double-edged sword with something like this, is it can solve so many problems, but taking it to market, you have to be very laser focused in what you want to attack. So, financial services firms and finance functions are, one of our targets. But there's so many use cases, and it's really just a function also of your opportunity and somebody seeing the value of it and being able to run with it very quickly and affecting real change.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Fred. We have a question from Joanne. How will this be compared to a data quality tool in an automated way with now human intervention and with AI algorithms who learn and improve the modeling in an automated way? Not sure if you guys have given this much thought, but love to hear your thoughts if you have. Yeah,
I can take a partial stab at that, Fred. I know we're using this a lot with a customer of ours who's doing a lot of demand forecasting using Data Robot.
Mm-hmm.
So they're integrating Data Robot with Qlik, and a lot of the process around retraining models and so on is automated. But one part that we find that they constantly need manual input on is they will see demand peaks or troughs that the models can't really understand. And these are because of one-off events. There might be a weather event, for example, that had an impact on their distribution. They sometimes see sporting events have a big impact on demand for their products. And these are things that there's no real pattern to them. They often don't repeat, and when they occur is essentially random. So they actually use the extension to flag these events and categorize these events, and that feeds back into the model. So
yeah, just to add that my 2 cents on that is this writeback extension is not a tool to replace a data quality solution or a master data management solution. So there's very robust solutions out there in the market that are owned and administered by IT, and they are very powerful, and that's certainly not, we don't want to replace those systems. But if you think about this extension, it sits, with the business user. So being able to do tactical master data management and tactical data quality issues, this is a way to do it and get that input from a business user, and then find a way for that to feed into your strategic tool.
Got it. And then, so I think on that note, Trish has a question for Scott. He said he's probably missing something here, but he wants to clarify if the tool automatically identifies possible matches in the database. I think that goes back to your first demo that you were showing, or is this something that they have to work on?
Yeah, so this is not something that's automatically happening as part of the tool. We would be trying to identify those matches based on a set of rules in the Qlik script. So when we pull data over to Qlik from a database, we'd apply those rules and try and match. The extension itself is really just enabling that data entry and data capture point. Yeah.
Got it. And we do have a question on the webinar. Where can people find out more? And how did they sign up for that webinar?
That's a great point, Fred. Is the I'm just going to have a quick look and see if those details.
I just posted if you can look up my name on LinkedIn, I just posted the details on the registration link for that. But we'll be resharing that to the participants as well. It's on the 30th of April, and we'll be doing at least four use cases at that point. But it'll be great to have more participants there.
Yep, I know there's a registration link on the Pomerol Partners website as well. So if you Google Pomerol Partners Writeback webinar, you'll find a registration link up there as well.
Okay, awesome. And I can share. Yeah, okay. I think I just found it. I'll share it here in the comments so people can see it and sign up. Whoever's on here. All right. I think we can wrap up unless guys, Fred, Scott, anything else you want to tell the audience? Any final points?
Probably final point from my perspective is use cases. We're always interested in code development. So if you think you've got a very interesting use case and you think your company can use this, we'd love to hear from you. And doing something on a code development perspective, because it adds value to our product. And it's the way the solution was born, and we'd like to build on that entrepreneurial success.
Yeah, nothing else from my side. Thanks for the interest, and thanks for the session, Kate. It's really interesting. And yeah, just to reiterate what Fred said, where I'm always interested in new use cases and sort of getting challenged on what else we can use this for. I've already had some interesting ones come across this week already. So yeah, please shoot us a message with some more of those.
Awesome. And I just tagged you both in the comments. So if you want to make sure you got the right Fred and Scott, I've tagged them in the comments below. And thank you guys so much for your time. And thank you those who joined us live. Have a great rest of your day.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate it.
All right.